One of the musicians who had an influence on me was the singer of the bands Tool and A Perfect Circle, Maynard James Keenan. After a classmate played his cover of Imagine for an English assignment in ninth grade, I ended up exploring A Perfect Circle, which became one of my favorite bands. A Perfect Circle was a short-lived supergroup consisting of Keenan from Tool, his guitar technician Billy Howardell, James Iha of the Smashing Pumpkins, Geordie White of Marilyn Manson, and Argentine musician Pazlin Canton. Keenan was always interested in Eastern mysticism and Jungian psychology, and we can see this in the names he chose for his groups. Tool refers to the linga, or male organ, and was the vehicle for Keenan to express the masculine side of his psyche. A Perfect Circle is a yonic symbol and was my preferred band, examining more poetic and intimate topics and Keenan's feminine side. A Perfect Circle produced some of Keenan's best writings as an artist and give us some of the best insights into his character. A Perfect Circle made 2 albums and 1 cover album. Their first album, Merdenams, or Sea of Names, is a reflection on a list of figures meaningful to Keenan, including his mother and some lovers. The title is also a double entendre, where the French merde gives a different meaning to the songs, showing that many of them elicit unhappy memories. One highlight includes the track The Hollow, an existential anthem on the lack of fulfillment felt from sex. Another is one of its darkest tracks, the song Judith, which Keenan made for his paralyzed mother, who nonetheless maintained a pious devotion to Christ through her suffering her whole life. Another major track is 3 Libras, exploring an account of one of Keenan's unrequited loves. In the song, Keenan falls in love with a damaged girl and opens himself up to her emotionally, only to find himself confused when he's spurned. In Magdalena, he idealizes about a perfect woman, and in Rose, he dramatizes his feeling of rising and reasserting his sense of power and agency in life. A Perfect Circle also made the album Emotive, a collection of covers of songs by bands like Black Flag, Depeche Mode, and John Lennon. The album also contains the track Passive, at that time the one product of the collaboration done between Keenan and the lead musician of Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor. Many of the songs on Emotive deal with an anti-war theme, having been written in the Bush era when people were unhappy with the country's interventions in the Middle East after 9/11. In contrast to Merdenams and Emotive, 13th Step is a concept album, an allegory where every song explores an aspect of a unifying theme, in this case drug use and addiction. Consisting of 12 tracks, like the 12 steps of a Narcotics Anonymous program, one implication is the 13th step is to replay the album, representing a relapse and a return back to the cycle of addiction. 13th Step has 7 major songs, and 5 that give structure to the album. I'd like to analyze the 7 major tracks and one of the minor ones. 13th Step came out a decade after Nine Inch Nails' concept album, The Downward Spiral, which explored the topics of depression and self-destruction. Growing up with these 2 works as influences had a major impact on me. With the musicians counseling me through their music, it was hard to fall into the vices they explored, their songs giving me insight into these topics. The first song on the album, The Package, explores the experience of someone with a prescription drug addiction. The song was written during the time of the OxyContin epidemic in the United States, when Purdue Pharma was engaged in the unethical peddling of the drug to doctors, who increasingly prescribed it to people for recreational purposes. The song starts with a slow, emotional tone, showing the inner conflict felt by a drug user. The tone shifts to express the banality of daily life, showing the only joy or relief from unhappiness is derived from drug use. The speaker tries to ingratiate himself to a doctor, repeating a line about deception, consciously doing so to get pills. He feels entitled to the drug and doesn't want to make friends with anyone. The drug is his friend, something we see again later in Pet, and fulfills every need he has. As the hard metal of the song enters, the anger to get the drug appears, and the lyrics shift from formal pleasantry to that which demands to possess. As the song proceeds, its dissonant noise shows the speaker's desperation, the inner turmoil felt by those fallen to substance abuse. One of the singles of the album, Weak and Powerless, has a dark aesthetic. In it, the speaker portrays himself as a ghoul subsisting in a state of unlife, gratifying his desire for a drug, alluded to more positively in the package. Having withdrawn from ordinary life, the speakers become like a vampire, spending time in an underworld. He calls for the better angels of himself to go away, turning to the solace he finds in substance abuse. The recurring lines of the title, Weak and Powerless, show the underlying reality of the addict. This is a very different vision of him compared to the other songs of the album. Weak and Powerless reminds me of another great work on addiction, Darren Aronofsky's film, Requiem for a Dream. A macabre film starring Jared Leto, Jennifer Connelly, Ellen Burstyn, and Marlon Wayans, Requiem for a Dream explores how each of its characters' dreams for the future are slowly eroded and destroyed due to the influence of drugs. Another bleak song. In The Noose, the speaker confronts a former addict who's beaten their pattern of compulsive behavior and become clean. The song has an ethereal tone, invoking ideas of angels and Christianity. This seems to refer to the idea of the 12-step program, calling on a higher power for support. Though the subject of the song has beaten their inner demons, the speaker is angry at the injustice of the situation. Making amends is a core part of Christian morality, and we see this in the song. Annoyed at their hypocrisy, the speaker wants the addict to make amends to the dead, those injured by their drug abuse. This might refer to those personally hurt by their former actions. With a gloomy, discordant sound, Blue comes from the perspective of a family member of an addict, who tries to see the best, but becomes blind to their loved one's descent into drug abuse. The lyrics use a double entendre of smoke. In other words, where there's smoke, there's fire, and the image of the addict physically lighting up the drugs that they use. The imagery of blue refers to someone suffering from an overdose, changing colors as they suffocate and drift into unconsciousness. The color shows the disconnect of an observer witnessing someone die like this, unless they can be brought back through an intervention like Narcan. One of the minor songs on the album, Vanishing, portrays the pleasure of drug use. It has a calming, anxiolytic tone, showing how narcotics provide a temporary escape from the self. In the song, the heaviness of the world dissipates as the speaker dissolves into the air. Freed from the prison of being himself, the speaker escapes from his history and trauma. All his problems evaporate and are replaced by a sense of liberty, a sense of being above the world and its turmoils. This song reminds me of the film Trainspotting, when Ewan McGregor describes what getting high on heroin is like. He explains it as a transcendental pleasure, something that brings a joy so great you forget your troubles and find yourself above the banality of life, producing a mode of existence that only other drug users can understand. Musicians like Iggy Pop and Lou Reed also explored this theme, with songs like Perfect Day exploring the experience of heroin use. Different in tone from the rest of the album, The Outsider is a song about a lover of a drug user who's given up on them, viewing them as foolish and self-destructive. Rather than be supportive or ignoring the issue like in Blue, they've adopted a disparaging tone, seeing the drug user's actions as nihilistic and self-indulgent. A song of personal empowerment, the speaker expresses their confusion over their lover's actions, reaching a breaking point where they don't want them to affect their own life negatively anymore. The title is a double entendre, both referring to the subject of the song who feels like an outsider, and the speaker who doesn't understand their inner experience. If you see Keenan in his live performances, he invests a great deal in his performance of the song, showing his personal investment in it. It suggests he had his own self-destructive partner, maybe one on psychiatric drugs rather than narcotics, who he eventually had to leave his relationship with. This song, more famous for its political remix on the Emotive album, was originally on 13th Step. Pet is spoken from the perspective of the drug, referring to the addict as someone under the substance's control. The speaker tells the drug user to relax and be at peace, and to rely on it to deal with any problems, blocking out and ignoring a life of integrity or health. The most hopeful song on the album, Gravity, explores the addict's perspective, showing them finishing the 12-step program and becoming sober. In the song, the speaker feels broken, weary, and lost in life, expressing the frailty and fallibility of the human condition. Feeling meek, they want guidance, a theme we observed previously in the music of Ian Curtis. Repeated in the song is the image of being healed, hoping a higher principle or power might intervene to give them vitality and return them to the world of the living. At the same time, as the last track on the album, the song represents the potential return back into the cycle of addiction, with the album, if left on repeat, cycling from this track back again to the package. This song reminds me of figures like Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, and the wife of Phil Hartman, all people who aspired for sobriety, then fell back into addiction, suffering fatal consequences in the process.